Good afternoon, everyone. So I'm here to talk with you all about Factivism, Feminism, and the Sexist data crisis. And you're probably wondering, afternoon, you're probably wondering what that might be. A Factivist, I think you all know, because there's been a big campaign about it, what a feminist looks like. These are what Factivists look like. A Factivist is a fact-based activist, an evidence-based campaigner. We trust many of you are. We use this phrase advisedly because in the world of campaigning I'm from, we often let our passion get ahead of evidence and data, and that gets in the way of ultimately good campaigning. And we want to build a movement with all of you today, so this is a proper talk and a request and a campaign call to action that's coming to you. We want to build a campaign with you for Eva. Now, Eva Talage is 15 years old. She was born in the year 2000. You're all great at maths, you figured that out. And she was born at the same time as the Millennium Development Goals. And she wrote a letter to all of UN's 7 million members around the world asking us to help her eradicate extreme poverty in her village, Malinzanga, and the hundreds of thousands of other villages like it all around the world. She wrote to our 7 million members. She also wrote this letter, I have my hand in Swahili, to the President of the United States and to her own President, Kikwete. And I'll come to what he had to say about it shortly. And we think we need to build this movement of factivists and feminists combined to help Eva achieve her dream of eradicating extreme poverty in Malinzanga by 2030, because we have some challenges. But first I'm going to give you some good news that too often isn't shared. The first half of the story. So in Tanzania, her country, which is a beautiful, beautiful place, we 100% eradicated that country's debt. $6.8 billion of Tanzanian debt eradicated because of the Drop the Jet Jubilee 2000 campaign, which many of you supported, so thank you. We also doubled aid to Tanzania from $1.5 to $3 billion a year during the course of the Millennium Goals, so thank you for all your support for that. And the economy of Tanzania quadrupled. And along with that, 57% more kids are in school in Tanzania. Child mortality rates, under 5 deaths of kids, reduced to nearly a third of its previous levels because of a massive increase in vaccinations. The same is true across sub-Saharan Africa. 100% debt cancellation for the very poorest indebted African countries. Aid doubled for the region. The economy of the region quadrupled. And as a result, 57 million more kids like Eva in school. Annual child mortality, deaths of kids under 5, down by 1 million per annum. And 11 million people on the continent on life-preserving antiretroviral drugs. It's pretty extraordinary progress. Globally, that's writ out to 3.7 million fewer kids dying every day of preventable, treatable diseases because of debt cancellation, increased aid, and increased domestic resources used better by their governments in this global partnership. And that's 15 million people globally on life-preserving antiretroviral drugs. I just needed to share all of this with you because we don't hear enough about the good news. And also, we don't often tell the good news well enough. I just gave you a load of boring statistics. Michael and Benedicta are not statistics. These are 2 kids who would have caught HIV from their mother in utero, in childbirth, were it not for nevirapine that your taxes helped pay for, administered by this amazing woman, Dr. Patricia Asamoah, who piloted the use of nevirapine to prevent the transmission of HIV from mother to child quite brilliantly. And it's a program that's been scaled up all around the world. And we did this with your help, Red campaigners, One campaigners, faith groups, student activists, putting pressure on the politicians with an inside and outside game, using pop culture, friends of ours like Bono, and I just was talking about this with Jamie Heaslett backstage, the fantastic Irish rugby captain. And we use a mixture of wonk and sizzle. So on that one hand, we do the celebrity stuff and the social media. On the other hand, we use the evidence-based policy arguments, and it's that combination of inside and outside, wonk and sizzle, that we have found is pretty effective at moving policymakers. And as a result of all of this, we can move towards the zero zone, zero extreme poverty by 2030. The thing that Eva requested that you help us with in this partnership is not some dream. It can actually be achieved. We've actually reduced extreme poverty by 60% since 1990. And even in Africa, that many people thought was too left behind, there's been progress recently, as Saul was also just talking about. So we could get to the zero zone by 2030, but will we? And this is the bit where I need to be a little more, I've told you some good news, but I want to be intellectually, morally honest with you about some of the challenges that I don't think enough people in the sector I'm from are honest enough about, because we have to campaign so hard for aid and for debt cancellation and explain to you all what's happening with that money. We don't often tell you about the stuff we don't know about so well, or that what isn't working. But what got us here, to halfway towards ending extreme poverty, won't get us there, won't get us all the way down to zero. And one of the things I need to be really open with you about is the data crisis. There is an extreme poverty data. Now, I really wanted to talk with this crowd about this because you're all data scientists, nerds and geeks and entrepreneurs, and you understand coding and all that kind of stuff much far better than we do. And, you know, living in a world of extreme big data, it's hard to register that in the world, 1/3 of all births are not registered. And 2/3 of deaths and the causes of deaths in this world today are not registered. Outside of health clinics, 80% of deaths are not registered. We don't know where people are born, what their gender is, where they live, where they're dying, and what they're dying from. And we have extreme poverty data sets which are decades out of date. So a lot of the stuff that we talk about and the progress I was just talking about is actually a complex set of interpolations and extrapolations and assumptions based on some fairly shoddy data sets. Now, we know the overall progress is extremely positive, going in the right direction, but the precision is very hard to get right, and therefore it is very hard to be quite certain our programs are really working. And this geezer here is, I'm afraid, a huge part of the problem. So he actually lives in Eva's village near Malinzanga, on the outskirts of her village. He's the village executive director. And this dude is not, I'm afraid, very good at his job. His job is to collect data on this village from the government about the budgets that are supposed to be going into agriculture, healthcare, and education for Malinzanga village. And there are thousands of people like this across the developing world. He's supposed to disseminate this information locally and make sure people can hold the local budgets accountable for whether the programs and the money is being well spent. And you can see right here what's happening with that data. It's actually on the flip of this peeling poster. It is peeled off in this desultory, depressing fashion off the wall. Now, I don't know what's going on in his head. I didn't have the chance or the heart really to interrogate him. Maybe he's depressed, maybe he got the job out of corruption, maybe he wasn't paid for the last 3 years. I don't know. But we know that the poverty of data, the extreme poverty of data, starts here. We talk about PDFs being where data goes to die, where in development, it's these peeling posters where data goes to die. And it is killing Eva's future, and arguably that of all of us, because the bad data I just talked about is the composite of all of these bad practices at a local level. So we have to solve this data crisis. We have a further one. We know that extreme poverty is sexist. It is women and girls who are the worst hit by poverty, and yet it is always them who are the best investments. So if we deliver for women, we know women and girls deliver, and yet in the development world we don't do it enough. And when you combine the data crisis with the fact that poverty is sexist, we get the sexist data crisis and the title I started this with. And there are many data points here, but there's also a lot of unknown unknowns when you're talking about data you don't know about. Here's one data point that tries to underline this. In sub-Saharan Africa, 80% of the data points to measure women's economic empowerment are missing. And it gets worse, of course, because women and girls also get the least access to mobile phones and connectivity. And that is part of why the data is so bad. In sub-Saharan Africa, women are 23% less likely to own a mobile phone. And when it gets to Niger, 45% of men have a mobile phone and 13% of women. So that's what's holding these communities back. It's what's holding the fight against extreme poverty back, and it's holding us all back. Now, the global goals just got launched just over a month ago in New York. We were there with Mark Zuckerberg and Bono and the Pope and Malala, and it was a great fanfare that not that many people in Europe noticed. And these global goals for sustainable development are our future. But they will not achieve the goals that all of our world leaders signed up to unless we solve this sexist data crisis. And that's what we need your help to do. So we're fostering a data revolution to help fill these data gaps, and we need you to join with us in this. We're also partnering with many groups around the world to ensure that they can get online and get access to mobile phones in communities like Malinzanga. And we want you to join the Poverty is Sexist campaign that is helping to push and achieve these goals. So please help us score these goals by joining this campaign. Help arm kids like Eva so that they can get connected, they can inform us about what's happening in their communities, and we can inform them so they can share information locally to make sure the money is being well spent. We need to arm these gender data revolutionaries. And please join this partnership. This is just a few of the organizations who are part of this effort and this campaign. For example, Planet Labs just launched 100 laptop-sized satellites just in the last couple of months, which every 48 hours are remapping and taking pictures of the surface of the entire planet of the Earth, of our planet, up to a resolution of 5 meters. And Premise, which is kind of like an Uber for data, which is giving microtasks out to people to take local snapshots of data at a local level. Well, David Rowan from Wired was just talking about Nathan Eagle and MSENT. And again, what it enables is kids like Eva from Malinzanga to get free airtime in return for filling in surveys and filling in data sets at a local level. So please join us in this campaign. Now, I mentioned Eva at the beginning, and she'd written all these letters, and I've had a lot of really great experiences as a campaigner over the years, getting 100% debt cancellation, doubling aid to Africa, and these things were all great. But this was an extraordinary moment because this girl who lives beyond the net in this data-free zone in Malinzanga wrote to the President of the United States, and he held up her letter, which I have in my hand, and read it out to all other world leaders at the UN General Assembly just over a month ago. And this is a picture of her watching Obama reading her letter to all other world leaders. So please, for Eva, we want you to join our campaign to solve the sexist data crisis, end extreme poverty in Malinzanga and all places like it around the world, and please join one. Now, Jamie Heaslett backstage just took a strengthie and is one of the first blokes to do this. Beyonce just did one for us, Malala, and it's based on this image from Rosie the Riveter, who's that Second World War feminist icon who, to encourage women into the workplace, took this pose, and it's being reappropriated for the Poverty is Sexist campaign and the campaign to solve the sexist data crisis. And I'm going to ask you all, if you don't mind, please, to stand up, because you two are playing in Dublin in about a month's time, and about 40,000 people, I hope, then will take a mass strengthie. But we would like to challenge them to do that strengthie. So would you mind just standing up, and I'll try and take a picture of all of you doing a strengthie like this for Eva and for this campaign. And if there are gentlemen or women with the cameras, could you take pictures of the people doing it? And if you don't want to do a strengthie but want to take a picture of someone else doing one, could you do one, please? This is the world's biggest ever strengthie. You're all fantastic. Look at this. Yes, even you, just here in the nice pink shirt. Thank you all very, very much. You're fantastic. Thank you, Web Summit. There's some nice people from the One campaign with One t-shirts over there. We've got a big thing with a big One sign at the back over there on the left. A nice virtual reality headset. Go and have a look and join the campaign. Thank you all very, very much. And thank you, Paddy. And thank you, Eva.